Hey all. So, as you know, I'm quite a fan of Arch-based distros and Arch at the core. And, the last couple of videos has been reviews of different Arch-based distros that I've either tried virtually or on my actual own hardware. So, recently on my own hardware, what actually happened was my hard drive failed and I actually used the Arch installer to install it, vanilla Arch. But then what I found out, of course, there were additional packages I had to install, and the most random things wouldn't work on my laptop, especially with some of the drivers. And I thought, well, what is an easier way to install Arch or something that's at least as close to Arch with as little additional packages as possible? And then, of course, I remembered Antijoss, which we all know is closed down quite a long time ago. And of course, EndeavourOS is the spiritual successor. So what I actually did was I got EndeavourOS, and I thought, hey, that's actually something worth to do a review about. And one of the great things about it, especially on their website, is everything is so clean, straight to the point, tells you exactly what's supported, what isn't supported, who the team members are. And I must tell you, having looked at the community, some really, really pleasant and helpful people around. And what's also great as well is if you look at the Endeavor OSS wiki, you'll see what they've done is they've split everything up into different articles, everything from ButterFS to audio articles, Grub, Intel, video, system rescue, etc., which really makes it a lot easier for a couple of people to get started. So I thought, hey, just because one knows Arch, maybe one sometimes wants to get everything off the ground running quicker because you have other work you need to accomplish. So what we're going to do here is go through the installation together. The latest release at the moment is Endeavour OS Apollo 22, and what it is, essentially, it's a live distro, but at the same time, if you install it live or connected to the internet, you can choose one of multiple desktop environments, and XFCE is the default offline edition. With that, let's get started with Virtual Machine Manager. So next, let's browse for the ISO. Endeavour is Apollo, only about 1.8 gigs. Type in Arch. Next here, I'm gonna give it 4 gigs of memory, 4 CPU cores. Let's just give it 40 gig hard drive, and I'm just gonna call it END for Endeavour, and network selection. NAT is fine. Let's finish it up and get it started. So immediately, of course, default, if you're using Intel or ATI graphics, and NVIDIA if you're using an NVIDIA proprietary card, or fallback if you're having issues with drivers. Since this is a virtual machine, I'm just going to use the default. Something I will talk about from personal experience on my own laptop, I was very much able to get everything up and running again very quickly. I did like the fact that EndeavourOS now defaults to pipe wire since Apollo, so that's really great because a lot of distros, of course, are moving forward. And I find on some other distros when you have to change, or sometimes from pulse to pipe wire, it can just be a mess. So it's great to have it out the box now. EndeavourOS, of course, very clean looking default interface here. Uh, Great theming that they've done with XFCE and the normal type of installer summary pages that we get quite often these days on these type of distros. Looking at the live disk here, basically normal software here: mail reader, install system, a calculator, G-parted, display, etc. All in this really, really great extended menu. Task manager, just out of curiosity. Well, right here we can see this live disk is using 766 megs of memory, and CPU is about 3 to 9%. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to install this. So let's go to start the installer. Now, something important to know is community editions. What makes it a community edition is there are about three different workspaces or GUIs you can use instead. That's not officially supported by the main project. But for this, I'm just going to say start the installer, online or offline. I'm going to choose online and give it a few seconds to identify what's going on. And of course, the Calamari installer, location is fine, default is fine, raise disk, okay. So it has ext4, ButterOS, XFS out the box, and swap, no swap. I'm just going to choose XFS. I can tell you that the ButterOS implementation is pretty stable, as well as using snapshots and rollbacks, as I've tested on my own machine here. I'm not going to encrypt it. I'm not going to do manual partitioning. Let's go next. Desktop selection. So this is only in the live or when it's connected to the net will you have these options. And interestingly enough, of course, there's also a no desktop option. So perhaps you setting up a server and you wanted Arch based but easy installation, you pretty much could just use the no desktop option here. XFCE, i3, Plasma, GNOME, Cinnamon, Mate, Budgie, LXDE, LQT. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to choose something different for change because I usually always do Plasma in these videos. Let me use Mate or Mate. And next page is just a high level overview of additional packages you can install. So over here, you have the base systems. It's recommended not to change these packages unless you really know what you're doing. Normal Firefox comes in. What's also great is it easily gives you the option of if you want the LTS or Zen kernel. I myself personally use the Zen kernel for when I do gaming, but I have the normal kernel as a backup or if there's an issue with my NVIDIA drivers on my own workstation. And I'm happy to say that by default it uses NVIDIA DKMS. So even if you install one of these custom kernels, the system will automatically rebuild the necessary drivers when required. So we chose Smart Desktop. I'm not going to select any additional options here. Let's make this as plain as simple. So, gosh, we'll still use that name. We'll just call it ENDVM and a extremely safe password. And we use the same password for the system admin account. And let's hit install. So while this has a quick installation, again, time will also be dependent on your internet connection since it needs to do ranking with Pac-Man. It needs to find the closest mirror to you, or at least the fastest mirror, and of course copy all that information there automatically. You get this nice little slideshow here. Again, most of these distros do that. In the meantime, looking at the included software, pretty lean distro out the box, and really at the moment what you would call it is it's pretty close to normal Arch or vanilla Arch with an easy installer. Of course, there is some theming that's done and some customizations, but to get up and running quickly with Arch, and you don't want to use a third-party Arch installer, and you don't want to use Arch install just yet, and you don't want to use one of the other derivatives such as Garuda or Zero, this is an excellent opportunity. And I'll come back once the video, or once we've moved a bit more forward. So, yeah, it's about 7 minutes later, and that portion of the installation has completed. So let's go restart now. Next, does nothing. Okay, done. Restart. So far, that was a really quick and easy install so far. Let's just wait for it to come up and see what it does. Okay, cool. As you can see, some branding. Okay, so the Martell Mate desktop isn't branded very much. Oh, okay, there we go. That's a different wallpaper. That makes more sense. I just want to change the resolution. I'll just use the GUI tooling. Okay, keep this config. Close. Okay, here we go. So pretty standard default installation here. Most software utility is what's in the default from Mate desktop. If we just look at the system monitor by default, you can immediately see here we're using about 900 megs and CPU usage is really, really low. Preferences, options to change the appearance, different themes still installed if we wanted to change it, backgrounds, interface, etc. So I'm not going to change any of that because we want to know more about the inner workings of the OS. So what I'm first interested in and what I'm going to look at is I want to see their repos. Can anyone actually see this? No, that's not very helpful. Terminal, profiles. I don't know, edit. I just want to give this thing a different color or something. Oh, that is horribly bright. Just going to make that black, and let me just make the text color green, because why not? Yeah, sorry, I'm not actually used to using this terminal, so I just have to do use with what I can. Okay, you should all be able to see this now. Let's zoom in a little bit. Okay, now that that's done, what I'm interested in is seeing how the packages are pre-configured for Pacman. So let's go cat to our etc directory, and it should be pacman.conf. Okay, and let's take a look here. General options, that's perfect, that's fine. Repos. Okay, so you can see testing is hashed out, so that's disabled. Core, extra, community, so that those default from Arch is enabled and included. Multilib is also enabled by default, great for the 32-bit software requirements. Then the only additional package that you really see here is EndeavourOS's own. Apart from that, I don't see any other custom repos, so that's pretty cool and decent. Let's clear that. Okay, something else to take note about this distro, and I do find it a little bit ironic for a distro that's basically easier to install Arch, is there is no graphical installer for software included in this. It's absolutely bizarre. So I know Yay is installed, so you could, if you need anything from AUI, you could use Yay, or Pacman for anything that's in the normal Arch repos. But I do find not having any package manager included. A bit of a bizarre um, thing, really. I would have thought it would have been there. But in any case, so here on the welcome screen, this tool, you can update the mirrors, update the system, package cleanup config. So for example, how often do you want to clean the Pacman cache? Weekly, how many versions to keep, etc. Great that there's a little tool for that. A lot of newer Arch users forget one has to actually do that. See, here was actually the option to change display manager. So if for some reason you would prefer to use one of the others, you can just select it. Oh, here was the option to change the display resolution, uh, which is interesting because it's actually highlighted at its old resolution, so it hasn't yet actually picked up the new resolution change that we did. And here, choosing your wallpapers, downloading more wallpapers, not too worried about that. And then here you've got update your system again and update mirrors. So again, it's the same as after install tasks. So this is more for as you continue to use the OS. So let's say we wanted to browse all Arch packages. You'd hit this button and Firefox pops up. And now you would see all of these packages. Click AUR and you'll see it's all here. So in the normal repo, again, I just find it very weird that it's not included. But in any case, troubleshooting logs, tips. So let's say you click on package management and bam, another web page. Really great web page that gives you so much info about Pacman there. So let's say we were to click on AURNA. You guessed it, another web page to the documentation. Let me just click there. Same for video users, EndeavourOS and ARM. Oh, okay. I thought maybe everything with the specific exclamation would just be the web page. But anyway, personal commands, drag and drop. Isn't a web page. Okay. Now, here is what's also new in Apollo. Not only is the sound moved to Pipewire, but there is this option here to choose popular apps to install. And this is, I suppose, the closest thing to a package manager built in, or a graphical package manager. So let's say here, for example, you have all these categories, audio players, browsers, Office, etc. And you want to install one of these. Well, you guessed it. You can just come select it. So I'm just going to choose VLC, hit install now, authenticate. Going to do a quick sync. We shouldn't have to upgrade any packages because it's importing everything live. Okay, and it should be installed. That's very quick. And here's good old VLC all installed. Something else to check would be what kernel we're running. It should be, I would imagine, the latest kernel. Yeah, 5.18.1. So, in short, EndeavourOS, if you want to get up and running quickly with Arch, and you don't mind some of the theming, and bear in mind you can disable the theming and just use your own vanilla theming. And bearing in mind there's one extra repo, pretty close to standard Arch as you're going to get, with a really easy install out of the box. Having said that, though, this, I really think this OS fills a great place in the market. And I think before Arch had its installer and all the other installers became more popular, was an even better thing. Moving forward, though, as the Arch's normal installer gets better and some other distros continue to get better and additional third-party install scripts get better. I would like to see something else that separates EndeavourOS, because I kind of feel the more mainstream or easier Arch gets, lack of a better word, the value proposition for EndeavourOS might not be the same as it was all those years ago for, with AntiJOS or some of the others. So right now, I'd still recommend EndeavourOS. I still think it's great. I still think it's really easy to get to. It has really a helpful community. Documentation is easy and simple to understand. It's all there. Great user choice. But moving forward, I would really, really like to see something else that separates it from the rest. I don't know what that would be, but I would love to hear your comments and suggestions, and perhaps hearing about your experiences with EndeavourOS. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to wrap this video up. And as always, thank you for watching.